like a family tree, part of you and part of me. And if we should separate, go your own way, I won't wait.
Bring the funk back.
You are now tuned into This Korean Life with your hosts, Brian and Nate.
Cool, man. All right, let's roll this in. Number 113. You're not superstitious, all right? 13's all right? All right, welcome back to another episode of This Korean Life. Number 113 featuring Chris Edwards. Chris, welcome all the way from Waterloo, Ontario. We got 3 Ontario boys in here today. Congratulations, by the way, on the recent publishing of, is that your first independent novel?
That's correct.
That's correct, yes. Flung. It's a sci-fi thriller.
Sci-fi adventure? Yeah.
Sci-fi adventure. It's pretty good. I worked my way through it this week. A lot quicker than I would have liked to have read it, but it was good, man. It seems every time there's a ray of light and like, oh, they're gonna be okay. Oh, they're hit with another crisis or something. A very thrilling book. I really enjoyed. The big question I have to know, reading through the book, you have so many references and so much scientific background knowledge. Is this just something that you've accumulated over years of, I don't know, Star Trek or Star Wars, or was there a lot of research that went into behind this?
A lot of it is just from watching Star Trek.
Okay.
Do we have to retake that?
Sure. Yeah.
Want to take that again?
Sure. Yeah. A lot of it's from just a lifetime of being in the.
So yeah, a lot of it is just from watching Star Trek, and reading various Wikipedia articles. Not a lot of deep research. I've read like a brief history of time and a few other pop science books.
Sure.
But no,
because
no deep research.
Sure. Well, I mean the name of your ship. I thought, I was like, oh, this is interesting. How do you spell it? Tereshkova. Tereshkova. I had to Google that. I'm like, is this someone's name? And that, as you mentioned before, it's
the first woman in space.
Yes. Even where the idea of your book is that they're sending the civilians or whatever to the next development, to another star system, and you mentioned Tau Ceti.
Tau Ceti,
which is a real place.
12 light years from Earth's solar system.
Yeah, it's similar to our sun. It's one of those. What do they call it? Like the sweet spot.
Yeah. If there's a habitable planet, it might just be there.
Sure. Yeah, I mean your knowledge of the ship vocabulary and everything, I was like, whoa. But anyway, it was a nice read.
Going back to the very beginning, what maybe through your childhood or upbringing maybe led you down this path of being interested in science fiction and the kind of fantasy stuff, and how maybe tell us a little bit when you were young growing up, maybe how you got into this stuff, or what maybe led you to go down this path.
Were you watching NASA launches and stuff?
Astro Boy?
I did it. I did see the Challenger explode in my classroom.
Sure.
They wheeled the TV set in that day.
Yeah.
But no, Star Trek: The Next Generation started syndication right about the time I was an impressionable young boy. That's probably the biggest influence.
Cool. Something that really sparked my interest in outer space and in space travel and whatnot. The first thing I can remember was watching Apollo 13. I remember watching that, just going like, "Oh my, is this was a real thing?" Or do you know the Apollo 13?
Yeah.
They go up, they have a problem. They're like, "Okay, we got these 10 items. We gotta make an oxygen filtration set," and they plug it all. You know, they're using duct tape and plastic bags, and they end up saving the guys.
The real story is even crazier than the movie makes it.
Really, really.
Yeah, they really had to MacGyver that thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. And even something else on top of that. One of the engineers, her name was Judith Love Cohen. One of the, are you familiar with this? One of the NASA engineers, Judith Love Cohen, very instrumental in helping bring them back down safely, is the mom of Jack Black.
Okay.
Jack Black, the actor. Pretty cool, eh? You gotta call your mom. Mom, what did you do?
The Apollo missions just came up a bunch the other day there. Well, they had the moon landing. They were broadcasting yesterday. Must have been either during my trip back or as soon as I arrived. They were broadcasting the live landing of the moon. What's it?
Lander,
capsule,
rover,
or whatever
yeah.
it was, rover. And they brought up, 50, 60 years. Why now? What's changed? What's different? And I think cool if you're the kids in school now seeing these things like the race back to the moon and whatever else that, man, yeah, I think it'll pique a lot of kids' interest.
Sure, no doubt.
What about going through, how old were you when Star Trek came out?
I want to say 10 years old.
Okay, so through middle school, high school,
Yeah.
you got deeper and deeper into the space stuff, or
Yeah.
were you already writing by then, or?
I was writing really basic stuff back then, yeah.
I like in your, living in Korea. You've lived here for
20 years.
For 20 years, okay. So living here, you find lots of problems, especially 20 years ago, with communication. There's language barriers and whatnot. I like in the book you've explained the difficulties that arise when two different in the book species, but I mean it can be, there's parallels here as well. Did your struggles here kind of help influence some of those situations?
Yeah, and in some of the earlier drafts of this, I had it much more difficult for them to speak, and I had they had to work through syntax and grammar and get really technical with it, but it just stopped the story dead.
Sure.
So I cut a lot of that out.
Sure. Now, when you're writing the story, do you plan it out? I imagine it, if you're watching like a CSI or like a detective movie, they have all the pictures on the wall and they're like drawing lines between them and putting strings. Are you doing it like that, or are you writing in a way that where you're putting your characters in a situation and then challenging yourself as a writer to get them out?
I had 2 or 3 distinct scenes that I knew had to happen.
Okay.
Before I wrote anything.
Okay.
One of them is just a quick example. Yeah. One of them I knew somebody was gonna jump out into space without a spacesuit.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's inspired actually by 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Okay.
And I know you could possibly survive up to 30 seconds.
Okay.
And I wanted to try to use that.
Cool.
I knew that was going to be in it. Nice. So I had these scenes. I knew this is going to be in there somewhere. Yeah. And I just got to, okay, I have this basic story idea, lost in space kind of idea. And then I will have these 2 or 3 scenes. I definitely want in there, connect the dots somehow.
Awesome. Cool. Awesome. And there's a couple situations, I mean, that I would imagine, I don't know, and I'm very interested to know if they were kind of reverse engineered. Did you have the end and then you're like, oh, damn it, how are we going to get that? And the 2 examples I hope you can explain are Clark takes control of the fighter ship, and they're up against the bad guy, the Dark Nebula. And it's quoted, I got it here, the impenetrable armor and devastating firepower. Again, did you know how that's going to end? Or did you, or was it like, oh, we got the small ship versus the big ship. What are we going to do?
Well, this is a spoiler.
Plan Z.
This is a spoiler I don't want to give away.
Oh, go.
But I knew pretty early on how the quote impenetrable armor was going to be not so impenetrable.
Oh, go, yeah.
There goes my pronunciation.
Sure, yeah. I fumbled it too. Impenetrable.
Impenetrable.
There you go.
I had to figure out how to work that into
Very nice.
the scene.
Cool. And I think maybe you've kind of explained already trade language.
Oh yes, trade language.
This was an evolution. You said originally it was grammar and syntax and whatnot, and you kind of cut that out.
Well, I said, that these different species developed an intermediate language.
Sure. Yeah.
That they could use as a step between their language of origin and talking to other species.
Sure. You did a good job too of there was one line, it was talking about or humans are maybe the only species that communicate with their eyes, and that was something that the alien species couldn't.
I think it was more the aliens noticed that
they could communicate.
Humans can communicate with their eyes. I think that was it.
Yeah.
It wasn't necessarily something they hadn't seen before.
Yeah. In general, I like the humans in your story are very human. Like they have very distinct elements that are human. You can feel just when they're hanging out together looking at the stars, like, oh, it's a very human thing, and it makes you reflect on how we're maybe unique or different than the other people in the story.
I'm glad that came through.
Yes. Was that part of the plan?
It's a lot like I know how some atheists talk about spiritual experiences in terms of, well, if you look up at the stars and you feel something inside you, even if you don't believe in religion or whatever, the feeling you have when you're looking up at night, that could be a spiritual experience.
Absolutely.
And I tried to get that into the writing.
Oh, you smash it out of the park with that. Another very funny element is when I can't remember which character it was, but her body is being scanned. Maybe Lee. Yeah. She's getting her body scanned. And, like, the aliens are like trying to just figure out generally what's going on with humans or how to fix her or something, and she's like, oh, you can't scan my body, and the alien's like, what the hell's wrong with you? What do you mean? No, but I'm human, you can't just do that. And I had the image of going to those airport scans where you stand like this and it does the full the full 360 of you.
Just got a couple of those.
No doubt.
Yeah, we humans are not supposed to be seen naked. Don't just show a picture like that.
Sure.
We have a thing about that.
Sure. Can you explain jump tech? Maybe as kind of an incentive to for people who want to read it.
So, first of all, as far as real physics goes, it's impossible.
Okay.
That's not a spoiler.
Sure.
No, it's basically... so space is big. To get from anywhere to anywhere takes a long time.
Sure.
Jump drive would mean, as I wrote it, it would mean you could get from point A to point B instantly.
Okay. Is that like a warp speed?
Like a wormhole.
A wormhole kind of
deal.
Cool, man. And is the Alliance the USA? Are they the Space USA?
I don't think intentionally, but maybe.
It seems like it, yeah.
Or old school UK, maybe.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. Just cruising around in space, like trying to eliminate everyone and take over. It's pretty good.
What were some of the obstacles you faced writing or developing or going through the process of writing this book? What are some things that popped up that maybe you didn't expect or that you found hard to get through?
Figuring out which kind of writer I am. Am I the kind of writer who can plan everything ahead and then write a first draft, second draft, third draft? Am I the kind of writer who can spontaneously just right on the seat of the, by the seat of my pants? And the answer is somewhere in between. And it took me many, many tries to figure out how I could work from idea through the various drafts to the end.
Did you ever do a rewrite? Zach, Zach, he introduced us. He said a proper rewrite is throwing everything out and starting with a blank page. Were there any of those for you? Were you courageous enough to burn it all and start again?
I think, yes, there was one complete rewrite.
Oh my God.
And then, but then after that, everything was editing.
Cool. Okay.
What can you give us like a time frame or the timeline of start to
This
finish?
story?
Start to finish on making something like this.
He did it over Solar Holiday.
No. Well, no, this
Is this a
story-
10-year project or?
Yeah, this story's about 10 years actually. Yeah. That's why I'm trying the sequel. Yes, there will be at some
Wow,
point.
very nice.
And I'm trying to make it not take 10 years.
But that's a huge learning curve. The first
yeah.
one, right? I mean, now
Yeah,
it
it's a
should be a
huge
lot
learning
more
curve.
smooth sailing.
But yeah, I tried to serialize it and release it in chunks.
Yeah.
That did not work for me.
Yeah.
So I took all the little chunks offline and kept them to myself.
You published them online already?
I did publish them
And then took them all down?
briefly, and then I took them back.
Some people have had huge success doing that.
I know.
Early in.
I won't diss it.
Yeah.
It just wasn't going to work for me.
So this is part of the trial and error process of finding out how and who you want to be.
Yeah.
The whole thing, start to finish, almost 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. How do you stay motivated or keep the energy going for that long? Or is it work on it for a couple of weeks, take 6 months off, or how often are you getting back to it to work on it?
I've had a lot of luck come into play there. So this publishing group that did the
Anthologies.
the writing block, which is now called Dusk Bound. So Writing Block had these anthologies, and I submitted my short stories to them and got published. And they posted on their Facebook group, we're considering publishing some novels with our anthology authors. If you have a novel length idea, shoot it to us, and we'll see.
Nice.
So I drew up a proposal for Flung, the idea that I'd been working with at that point for about 8 years.
Yep.
And they said yes.
Awesome.
Wow.
Very nice.
At what stage were you when you did this at 8-year mark or whatever? How?
I had a rough draft. And at the very least, it was a complete story from beginning to end.
Sweet.
And I would say that's the barest minimum you need if you're going to contact a publisher.
Cool. And so once you got that, how does that process work? Do they give you timelines or deadlines
yes,
you have to
they
meet?
get-
And how does that?
And any good publisher should. They gave me a timeline. They said, okay, we need a draft from you by this date, and then we're going to return edits to you by this next date, and then you return this next round of edits by this next date, et cetera, et cetera, et
Oh,
cetera.
very nice.
Is that like writing papers in university where you're like, oh shit, I got 2 days?
yeah.
Like,
It's very much like that.
Ideally, that's not how you want to be working, probably under the pressure. But I don't know. That's how I got
works.
my best work done.
It works for some people, I think.
Yeah, the deadlines make a difference.
Sure.
Very much so.
If it's an open-ended thing, you don't, you don't know where the end is.
But I
if you know
wonder
someone's waiting.
if that tells something about like your passion or how much you really want it. I mean, if somebody said do it and I really wanted it, I would do it. But clearly I don't want to, so I just keep pushing it back. But I again, back to the master's days, they're writing papers like crazy, and I need the 11th hour there just right at the end, and then I can type like a machine. But
Now, I read through your book. I got it early this week and had to blast through it amongst work and other things. For someone who goes over it a second time, or for someone who's reading it the second time, are there any Easter eggs or hidden details that I might not have caught on the first one? Is there anything, any plants in there that maybe will come up in the sequel?
Oh, not really, because I don't yet know what's going to happen in the sequel.
Okay.
Much like
The stage is set for the sequel. But.
much like when Lucas finished the original Star Wars for the first time, he didn't have a clue
Perfect.
what was going to happen next.
Hey, he made out all right, didn't he?
Yeah, it worked out, didn't it?
That's good. I like. Keep going.
But yes, I do have an idea now.
Nice.
Did you receive any feedback or input from the publisher that you didn't agree with or that you found hard to adapt or incorporate into what they wanted?
It was interesting. It wasn't really a big complaint or a contention, but it was interesting. I thought my writing was going to get into like kind of dark or gritty areas, and my publishers kept saying, "Well, this is kind of wholesome. This is kind of cozy and wholesome. Is that the vibe you're going for here?" I said, and I looked at the script again. I looked over what I wrote, and I said, "Okay, I guess it's kind of wholesome." And I realized, oh wait, the vibe I'm getting is not the vibe I had in mind originally. But okay, let's go with it. And
I thought it was a little gritty. No.
yeah,
I mean, the opening.
the opening is pretty gritty. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the opening gritty, but the ending it reminded me almost of a stereotypical Tarantino movie. It's like a culmination of intense, suspenseful, violent events that end up resolving themselves in a satisfying manner, I guess.
So had the writing block not offered you that opportunity, do you think you'd still be working on it now? Or were you into high gear then and said, let's get this thing done on your own already? Or is that something you think might have taken a few more years still?
Yeah, I might have shelved it for a few more years and come back to it probably.
Yay for deadlines.
And how would you, or how did you initially see it as searching out a publisher, or how do you normally do that as a writer?
Okay, so I had to.
Is it like anybody who will listen, or?
Yeah, I had shopped the idea to some indie publishers before, and yeah, you search them up. There's some websites. There's one called the Submission Grinder, which is pretty popular.
Is that for gay books?
And that one's free. There's ones that aren't free, but I don't condone the ones that you have to pay for. You shouldn't have to pay.
Yeah.
Well, they should be paying you a full.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, you query them, or you say, hey, this is my idea, or if they say, and you have to be careful here, you have to look at what they say on their website. If they say specifically, yes, you may send us your draft,
Right.
then and only then do you send your draft.
If you send an unsolicited draft, they just go. Boop, right in the garbage.
They'll just delete it.
Have you tried that before? And is this from experience?
Never heard back. Oh, interesting. Cool, man. Well, anyways, it got done, and I bet it's a real load off your shoulders once it's done and dusted. And now, I mean, you got a hard copy here. That must feel like you put a feather in your cap there. It feels good.
This is my proof copy.
Beautiful. I love do you have a say in the cover art and whatnot?
Oh, Mike. So there's 5 people on the publishing team.
Okay.
One of them is a professional cover designer.
Cool.
And so she designed this. And so I saw some of the stock images she drew from. And so she uses like Photoshop or Illustrator, all these different tools to put the different elements together. And then, this cover has the Tereshkova with the rings, the rotating rings. above a frozen blue planet.
Yeah.
And I love it. I love it very much. And so, yeah, she designed that for me.
It's wonderful, yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
And her name's Kate Helen Platt, and she's gone on to design. She's designing incredible covers now.
Yeah.
And she did some interior design that's really cool too.
Oh, you got. I haven't seen the hard copy yet, so you got some.
Yeah, every chapter has
Oh,
a
very
black
nice.
page with white text.
Yeah.
One black page with white text.
Oh, I like it.
At
Yeah.
the beginning of each chapter.
Wonderful.
When was it released?
It hasn't been yet.
It hasn't been. Okay.
It will be released on March 12th. So depending on when you hear this episode.
I'll put it up probably tomorrow
okay.
if possible. Depending if I got some time to edit tonight. Yeah.
So depending on when you, the listener, are hearing this, it's either out or it's still coming.
Yeah. Very nice.
What, as a writer, how do you anticipate, or what do you feel about maybe feedback, friends, family, whoever's going to read this? Do you actively seek feedback? Are you interested in it, or
Sure, the publisher.
I did this for me and I don't care and I'm happy and I love it and do what you want with it?
I'm scared of feedback. Actually, I'm mortified at. I'm not sure what my family's gonna say. I'm just glad that I'm from a very liberal family, because a lot of the relationships in this book are quite liberal-minded relationships.
Sure.
But it's science fiction.
Yeah, there's nothing really smutty in there. It's just
There's a Japanese and a Korean lady.
yes, I know.
That's an interesting one. Yeah.
I figure in the future, such differences will be.
They're gonna settle the the Dokdo conflict, and we're gonna sail off into space as one.
So you would be concerned about them reading it and how their perspective of you might change?
Maybe, or they, I might, or they might. I'm actually wondering if somebody's going to read this and think they're psychoanalyzing me.
Oh, yeah.
But that's I was going to say, like you know, same with us having people on here. We think we know them, or we have friends, and then we have them on here. You're like, whoa!
Exactly.
Now we got like three more layers of understanding.
Yeah.
But it's never. I don't think it's ever a negative or a bad thing. I mean, this is, you are who you are, and this is kind of like a passion project. I don't think it. I mean.
It probably doesn't give anything away that people don't already know about me. Yeah.
What?
But
any concern about students reading?
Good question.
That would be one of my things. Like when I'm out in public or something, and I think, what if my students are here, or getting students to volunteer with our organization, and then I'm like, they could easily twist something around and throw it around the university. Or something. I don't know, but maybe that would be one of my concerns. I wouldn't be worried about my family at all. But what about for you if the students start reading it? I mean, they're warriors, man. They can get some stuff out there in a hurry.
Well, first, I would be impressed at their enterprising ability to find it.
Yeah. Don't put that past them. They find a lot crazier stuff.
Yeah, I know.
I think it would deepen their respect for you that you have the ambition to bang out a 230-page book.
I do teach a basics of writing fiction class, so
you just
those students might just find this book.
Right.
You got some street cred now. That's awesome. Just speaking about the psychoanalysis or of your work, looking back on Nirvana, Kurt Cobain died early. And people like to go into his lyrics and be like, "Oh, it mean this, it mean that, it mean this, it mean that," and it must have been like a Dave Grohl interview where he's like, "Man, Kurt just wanted the simplest shit, no real deep meaning. He just wanted to make easy music for people to listen to and vibe with." And after his death, people are like, "This means this means that," and you can psychoanalyze till you're blue in the face, but in the end, it is what it is.
Yeah, but that might be people who are really into it. I think us living as foreigners here, if it gets misconceptualized or
There's nothing in there that's gonna. Yeah.
No.
no, I don't mean, but just in general.
In general,
I mean, my mother-in-law, if she thinks volunteering is weird, and it can be it can be anything.
Sure.
The hockey team that I coach, if they say they hear I do this or I think I do this, I'm like, whoa, you're thinking too much. Just relax.
Yeah.
There's nothing weird here.
Our teacher's ready to blast off into space.
One of the things that got me was Chris Edwards sounds pretty generic, but TCC Edwards sounds pretty cool.
Yeah.
What's with the TCC? Because I think, ooh, that sounds like a really cool author.
That's my legal name. I'm Thomas Christopher Charles Edwards.
There it is.
Oh, I assumed it was like that, but why the decision to? Is that like
Is that a tip
not
of
a
the hat to
marketing
Tokyo?
or? I think it's if you're trying to sell books or get a name out there, this is way better than
Yes,
Chris
exactly,
Edwards.
Exactly.
So
you've got it exactly right. It's basically I did a Google search on my own name, Chris Edwards.
Yeah.
Too many results. Too
Yeah.
many different people.
Right.
TCC Edwards. Okay, this is more promising.
Yeah.
And as soon as I started publishing under TCC Edwards, my work started moving up
Right.
the results
Yeah.
on Google.
Yeah.
Such a small thing, but such an important thing, and we can have huge impact.
Is that tip of the hat to JRR?
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. Very nice. I like it. Chris, what fascinates you most about outer space?
This, I think it was, to paraphrase Hitchhiker's Guide, I'm blanking here. Douglas Adams.
Okay.
Okay, to paraphrase Douglas Adams, it's so mind-bogglingly huge.
Yeah.
And there could be anything out there.
Yeah.
There could be anything.
Yeah.
We were just in Winnipeg with the kids, and to look up at the stars after taking an airplane for 20 hours, looking up and seeing the same stars we have here, and you go, how we went so far, but it's exactly the same. Nothing changed. Like, how far is that, and how big is it? And yeah, it's mind-boggling that just the sheer vastness.
But even if you zoom out a little bit and you realize how small we are, it's in some respects, it's so defeating and like, we're nothing. But at the same time, we are something. I like it. I remember along with Apollo 13, we had one math teacher in grade 9 who he got so fed up with our class trying to teach us math. No one was listening. He's like, that's it, put your books away. I'm going to tell you about quasars and supernova. And this guy explained all about outer space and how big it is and how fast light travels. And from that time I was like, whoa. And it's so deeply fascinating to me. And anytime you have a what do you call a mid life crisis? I'm not at midlife crisis yet, but coming soon. Anytime you're reflecting on life or whatnot, when you think about those things, the vastness of space, you're just like, wow, it's any problem you have here, like Jimmy said this about my book, like it doesn't matter. It doesn't. No one gives a shit. I like that. Have you seen? Sorry, in terms of movies again, have you seen the movie Ad Astra with Brad Pitt?
Have.
Overall, the movie's I thought
it's kind of meh.
But the first 30 minutes, I mean, when he falls from space or whatever, but when they're so naturally going from, like the same way Nate just took an airplane, he gets on a rocket and he's like, I'm going to the moon. And then he goes to the moon, and then they drive to the next space station, like, I'm going to Mars. And it's so, it made me feel like, oh my God, this is totally a possibility in the future. Mm-hmm. There's like escalators and shit on the moon, and they're just transitioning like an airport basically. And they're it was very believable. Yeah. It was a very believable thing. Do you hope in your lifetime to take a trip up to the moon if it's available and within
maybe my kids can go.
Yeah.
I don't know about going myself, but I'd certainly hope my kids can go to the moon or something like that. And I hope I'm still kicking around when there's a human being standing on the surface of Mars, you know?
You got 2 thumbs up for Elon Musk?
No.
No?
Definitely not. No.
You mentioned very liberal, and I didn't know.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I do not want to endorse
Elon Musk? Okay.
Sorry.
What's SpaceX not doing, not pulling their weight? Or what's
No, Elon has torn Twitter X into terrible
Oh, sure.
hellhole of
Sure, minus X. What about SpaceX? Are they doing, are they...
anything great that came out of SpaceX wasn't because of him.
Okay. But I mean, the company...
Despite him.
The company in general, though, is, I think they're pushing
The company is mostly okay. He's holding it back.
Oh, really?
He's holding it back. They need to get rid of him.
Yeah.
And get somebody better to take over.
In which way do you say he's holding them back? Because before him and his vision, the space race was kind of dead for decades. There was nothing until he came along, and now all of a sudden everybody fired up again. And holy man, we can start this up again.
Kind of the catalyst for...
Yeah, maybe, up to a point, he had something there, but...
is he fizzling out like a shitty firecracker?
Do we really need another billionaire who's always been rich? He didn't, he's never been poor.
Yeah.
He tells people he was poor once. He wasn't. And do we really need somebody like that leading people into space? I think we can do better. That's all I'll say. I think we can do better.
Do you think it should be are you suggesting it should be like a government-run agency as opposed to...
NASA's there. Give them more money. If the military can get money to drop bombs on kids, NASA can get money. Come on.
Sure. But
yeah, I guess there's no question that the money is there, one form or another. But that's where I give him the credit, is that he kind of... was the catalyst for this whole movement. And now with the reusable rockets, I mean, he's cutting hundreds of billions down to billions or tens of billions. Things that NASA never, ever would have got to and would have needed, they
maybe you
just
need
print the
both.
money.
Maybe you need both. You need that kind of evil...
private venture is
okay.
essential.
I mean, in my book, it is actually a private venture that starts mining asteroids, and that's what kicks off a new space colony in a completely different solar system. I'm not anti-private venture. I just think we have to be careful who we give something like the power of Twitter or whatever to.
Right.
Who gets that kind of power? We have to be careful. Like, who can control the discourse?
Sure.
We have to be more careful about who has that level of power.
The man with $44 billion.
Yeah.
But if for example you leave it to someone else and nothing gets done, and then for example the Chinese, the Russians, who the Indians, whoever, they end up taking it with whoever is funding it privately in their countries, and then all of a sudden you're on the bottom looking up. So
Right.
That's fine.
I think just for me looking at...
You're blowing up, Chris. You just sold 10 million.
Looking at it that way, I think I'm kind of glad that that's Canada and the States. Well, not Canada and the States, but Canada next to the States, and that we can kind of look, on closely as it evolves and as it develops. Because if it was only in China, my kids probably wouldn't have much exposure to it. You have to really go out and find it. But this being in the States, you can go any month of the year and watch launches, and it's close. It's around all the time, and it's in the news. So, but I get what you say about the Twitter part. Sure, no problem.
Sorry, back to world building. Base 472. Do you spend? Going back to Zach's last interview, he talked about how he writes full character profiles before he did his screenplay. He has the full background of the character. He knows them inside and out. Did you go through the same steps in doing in kind of the world building for that? Because I mean, there's lots of technologies, the gravity plates and stuff like that you've introduced.
I approached character building a little differently. I put the problems that I put the obstacles there and decided how my characters could approach them differently.
Okay.
And then once I figured out how the character A would solve this problem, anytime I write character A again, I say, okay, that's how we solved this problem last time. Let's try to stay consistent.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
What about world building? I mean, do you have the full idea? Like, is there pictures in your head like this is what base 479 looks like?
Yes, I mean I know basically. I have a picture in my head of what it looks like.
Yeah. Is that all written out on paper too? Do you got little sketches and stuff, or is that just something?
I can't draw worth a darn, so no, it's in my head.
Cool. Very nice, very nice. Awesome.
What do you hope readers will take away from this book?
It's short, and I hope it's an easy read. If you get nothing else other than my biggest hope is that it's accessible for equally accessible to people who do and don't regularly read science fiction. And also that the journey is as important, at least as important as the destination. That's the message, I think, the overall message.
Cool. Did you encounter any big surprises or unexpected plot developments? Why you said you had your main 3 points, but in between those, did you discover some interesting places to venture? Or? Again, we're asking here to reflect back on 10 years of writing, but if you was there any big ones or? Maybe a better question. Do you have a favorite scene or chapter that you wrote? I mean, some are more difficult to get through than others, but is there a really memorable one that you're like, ooh, that was a very cathartic?
Yeah, but I don't want to describe it because it's a huge spoiler.
Sure, okay. Beginning, middle, end?
It's near the end. It actually it's very close to the end.
Okay, very nice.
But yeah, I found that to connect the parts I absolutely knew wanted to be there.
Yep.
To connect those together, I had some surprises as to how the characters would have to act or what would have to happen to them to get from point A to B.
Very nice. Can you share any insights into your writing process? I've talked about before, if I need to do something creative, I need a big chunk of dark chocolate, a very strong coffee or espresso, and then maybe put on some lo-fi beats, and then I get really into it. What about you? Are you locking yourself in a room, earplugs, going away at it, or are you in a cafe enjoying the hustle and bustle of the big city Busan?
If it's early on in the process, I get more stressed out.
Okay.
And I need less
caffeine,
less stimulation from outside.
Okay.
So that's when I need to be shut off.
Okay.
If there's any music at all, it's going to be no lyrics.
Of course.
And probably something like really generic, like the most generic classical music you can possibly imagine.
Okay.
Something to be completely background.
Yeah.
And but then later in the writing process, once I got the idea going, I could be anywhere. I could be sitting in the middle of the busiest Starbucks on the busiest day, and I could still keep going.
Awesome.
Where do you typically write?
Usually out.
At home. So do you have a specific spot at home that's for you, or do you just stay up late till everyone goes to bed? Or
Actually, it's funny. During the big, COVID thing, remember that? We had converted. So my bedroom at home has had this little veranda, and it wasn't very useful. The space was kind of awkward, and we couldn't really do
Like
much
most verandas.
Yeah, we couldn't really do much with it. So we converted it into a mini office.
Cool.
So the sliding window door is still there, but now we can close it, and it's almost sound tight.
Oh, beautiful.
wow.
It's not heated, so I have to put a heater in there and run it whenever I'm in there. But
three season veranda. That's okay.
but anyway, it's really good. It's really good.
Oh, that's cool.
What does you mentioned kids? I'm assuming you're married.
Yes.
How do your wife and children play into this? And while you're writing, or do you put a sign up or say, "Hey, listen, I'm going away for a couple hours. Leave me alone." Do you ask for input? Do you ask for ideas? Do they look over it, read over it? How does family play into the whole process?
Most often I'm writing when there's nobody else around or late at night. I don't get a lot of... I don't do a lot of feedback with them. Sometimes if I need... But if I do need a female character, a woman, that's where my wife often comes in because, sometimes I don't know women very well. Right. And she's very helpful with that respect.
I hope in the future that when we go into space that males are equipped with with some sort of antenna that can pick up the silent signals that all women are sending that we never seem to get. We need the telepathy horn.
Are your children old enough to read this? And if so, what have they, or what do they think about your writing, or even maybe some of the stuff from the anthologies?
Yeah, they could probably read it now. They haven't yet. So we'll see what they think.
Do you pass along some of your sci-fi...
the love of sci-fi?
Yeah, the love of sci-fi onto the kids?
Yeah, I mean...
no dinner until you finish Star Wars 3.
My girls play hockey. They didn't have a choice. They just started skating when I...
Okay. So... my older son and I, we go and watch every single MCU movie.
What's MCU?
When it comes out in the theater. Marvel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Marvel. What's MCU? At Marvel Universe?
Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Oh,
right?
MCU. Gotcha.
So Avengers, Iron Man, whatever.
Cool.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
We go see it in the theater.
Cool.
And my younger son, anytime there's something Pixar animated, he wants to go with me.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. So they picked up my interest that way.
Right.
Very nice.
And how about for writing? Do you pass along any writing or encourage them in certain ways or specific ways to...
Just viciously edit everything they do. Send it back with all red marks all over.
Not so much. They're not really into writing. They
Most kids aren't these days.
Yeah. The younger kid, he's just getting into coding, and I said, well, if you ever want to make a game, you should think about a story that your game could follow.
Cool. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And if he wants to get serious about coding a game, I would definitely be there.
Yeah.
To help him.
Dad GPT. Yeah. Dad, give me some ideas.
help plan an idea, a plot to go with your game.
Oh, that'd be a father-son team. That's pretty cool, dude. That's pretty cool.
Is your wife also into sci-fi, or
no? I think to get her attention, I'd have to write K-drama.
50 Shades of Alien. Oh man. Oh, that's interesting. So you've been have you been in Yangsan the whole time since you've come to Korea?
I lived in downtown Busan for a while. But yeah, mostly young son.
At some point, I think all writers, do you eventually hope to transition into a full-time writing? Could you see that, or does it work for you? Does the balance?
I would very much like to.
Yeah.
And I'm going to write 2 more books. I plan to write 2 more books in this series.
Okay.
And
So 2046, we're looking at looking at the full transition.
and maybe pitch them to Netflix and see what happens.
Sure, yeah.
That sounds cool.
Is there any kind of rutted path that writers in your position take? I mean, where you have one published work. Have other people set the steps before and how you should pursue, or does everyone kind of have their own?
Yeah,
their own
everybody
way to
has
go?
their own way. But everybody will. Everybody says one thing for sure. You got to write more than one book, which I will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
You got to have a novel. You got to have multiple novels with your name on it before you talk about, TV show, movie, whatever.
Interesting. Is that, do they, I've thought about kids' books in the past and looked into it, and it's kind of the same thing. They said if you don't have like a 3-book series, no one will even look at it. Is that for the publisher because they want to sell more? They know they can.
Well, and also, they say your second book sells your first book.
Okay.
It's just
because you develop better as a writer, or because
that's part of it. And also, you think of it. You tell your best friend, I read this book by Joe Blow.
Yeah.
The first thing they're going to do is Google Joe Blow.
Right.
Yeah.
And if he only has one book,
That's blocked in Korea. You can't.
Just a flash in the pen.
yeah.
Interesting. That's it. How do you envision the life of a writer? Like, I think I would really romanticize it. Like, you wake up in the morning, you got time to do whatever you want, sit down for a couple hours in the afternoon. Do you think it's more, I don't know, not torturous, but it could be, I mean, you see all the horror stories of writer's block and kind of the difficult life of a writer. Do you picture it more as a grind, or more of a very passionate, wonderful, romantic lifestyle? Oh, I'm writing here, writing there.
It's going to be different for everybody.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean,
You envision it as like Starbucks at work.
yeah. Or I often, if I romanticize it, I'm imagining like, what's his name? Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
Yeah. Hunter S. Thompson.
Hunter S. Thompson. It's not so much the drugs part now. It's like the part that I imagine is, he's going from place to place, meeting different people, and then he'd have, for him, it was a typewriter.
Yeah.
Then these days it would be a laptop.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, you're writing stuff and just writing what.
But mescaline at Hyundai Beach would be pretty cool too. No, that was. Nate, have you seen that movie?
Which one?
Fear and Loathing?
No.
Oh, it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. But he was out there, and he's cool. I think it was him when he talks about just life in general. He said, "I'm not looking to when I die at 70 or 80 years old. I don't want like this pristine body." He said he wants his body to be like an old like race car. That's his grave is here. He wants to drive it in, and when it's smoking and one tire is blowing out, like he wants to really burn the candle at both ends.
Can you maybe tell us a little bit about the anthologies and maybe the Busan Writing Group and what kind of environment you guys have there?
Okay, so I joined the Busan Writing Group in 2014 or 2014, I think. Yeah. And so they were just meeting in a coffee shop in Oncheonjeong here in Busan. Well, not here. I keep thinking I'm in Busan right now. Yeah. But anyway, so they were meeting in Busan, and so we would, so it was Michael Gear and Stefan Viel. So Stefan Viel is a photographer and poet, and Michael Gear, he's a writer. We had writing meetings, and we played with prompts and play with different ideas. And then I proposed this idea of, why don't we put together an anthology of work, just publish it and see what happens. So we went through that process. Everybody submitted a work, and we edited together. Used Stefan's photography as the cover, and I went to a book printer. Well, just a printer. Yes, just a print shop near Gyeongsang University in Busan, and I looked at the different options, and we tried a matte cover. And a 6x9 size, and we just printed, like, I think at first we printed just 20 copies. And it was about $5 each, maybe $4 or $5 each at the time
to print.
And then we just sold them to friends and took them to
markets and stuff like that.
What was it called? It wasn't Liquid Arts at the time. What was it? Poetry Plus. It was called Poetry Plus at the time, with Kenneth May K. If you know him, he's if you know anybody in Busan, in the Busan poetry and writing scene, it's him. Probably going to be K.
Cool.
So we went to those events and said, "Hey, would you like to read this?" It was really small at first.
Sure.
And then later I put up everything on Amazon. So I did it with Kindle.
Yeah, that's a good. It's a good platform to. And have you had any success on Kindle? Do you get hits here and there?
Yeah, like every once in a great while, somebody buys the Kindle.
Sure. Yeah. Awesome, man.
And then, how did you get into the next few here?
The next
anthologies,
Yeah. Okay. So, next 2 times we did it, we had a lot more members.
Sorry, Brad, did you want to go into the story of this one?
Yeah, well, I think you had a... usually you write science fiction. I think the majority of the body of your work is science fiction. In this anthology, in the first anthology that you published, it was you had a different theme. It was contrasting the lives of a foreign teacher, which is seemingly privileged, versus a girl who is somewhat forced into prostitution. Can you shed a little light on how you came up with the theme, or?
Yeah, at the time, I saw myself as very shy and not very good at talking with women. Some people might have said I was an incel at the time.
Sure.
And this was just working through some of my issues. I decided to write this story of a woman character who'd be like totally different than anybody I'd ever meet. And just try to work out how somebody similar to me might deal with that situation.
Cool.
And I was also kind of trying to prove it to myself that I had this fear that if I met, a prostitute or whatever, I might, fall hopelessly in love.
Sure. But you wouldn't be the first. I think there's quite a few, but Pretty Woman, I mean, that's a very famous movie.
So I wrote this to kind of challenge that and force myself to think, okay, but what if I came out of that somehow?
Interesting.
And maybe I fall in love, but I have to move on anyway, or don't really fall in love, or something else happens.
Interesting.
Cool. I wanted to try let's just run this scenario and see what could actually happen.
Awesome. A very interesting thought experiment and exercise to work through a hard patch in life. Good. Awesome. So
then, how were you pretty satisfied with that, and how it?
Yeah, I thought it came out pretty well. Yeah.
Nice. And now we move on to the second one. This you were saying there's a lot more people involved. The writing group is growing. A lot more people involved
in the second and third.
Yeah.
So
did you spearhead those projects?
I guess I was sort of the spearhead, I guess.
And the first one you're published under Chris, and the second one begins TCC, I believe.
I think I was
There's TCC in
Were you
there,
TCC in the first one too?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And
TCC, MA, and SA. Everybody's onto the same thing.
okay, so with these, both of the one story was well, it had a science fiction twist on a kind of real life fiction, real life ish fiction. So I had a story where there was a car accident, and my main character could open the right door or the left door of the car in the crash. And whichever door he opens, it's going to be either his mom or his dad who survives the car crash.
Oh, God.
And he doesn't know that.
Oh, okay.
He doesn't know that. So I split the narrative
Okay.
into two parallel narratives.
Okay.
One where the mom survives, one where the dad survives.
Okay.
And I tried to write a parallel story. If you've ever seen a movie called Sliding Doors,
Okay.
same idea.
Okay. I'll check it out.
And then at the very end, there's a moment where there's an event that could happen in both timelines, and the character experiences a kind of deja vu.
Oh.
And
Interesting.
some people have said deja vu is when you experience another universe or whatever.
Okay. Interesting. Very
So I
interesting.
decided to bring that idea into the narrative.
Cool.
That was a really hard story to write, and I probably wouldn't do it again.
Yeah.
And what is the difference working with just a couple guys here, a couple guys you're familiar with, as opposed to many on the next one?
It was the editing was much harder.
I was going to say who's you guys are self-editing each other's.
We were editing each other. Yeah, we were looking. So we tried to get everybody involved in the editing process, and then 3 or 4 of us at the top, big quotes on the top, would do final edits.
Okay. Cool. Very nice.
And then third book, I had a goofy superhero story, which was a lot of fun to write.
Absolutely, yeah.
It was really fun.
Who's take us through your character development, or what's your who's the protagonist in your
He's a guy. He has the power to rewind and redo time.
Okay.
So Groundhog Day.
Yeah, sure.
That's his power.
Bill Murray. I like it. A classic.
And it was really fun to write. And but I kind of fell into a trap because he was living in Korea. And I don't think he was a teacher. I can't remember. It's been a while since I wrote. No, he wasn't a teacher, but he was a foreigner living in Korea.
Okay.
But I kind of saw what trap I was falling in there.
Okay. Speaking of heroes, I can't remember what's the name of the captain. The captain who takes over in
Holloway,
yeah.
yeah.
Does he follow the archetype of kind of the unwilling hero?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's
like he doesn't. He's not the captain in the beginning, but he assumes the captain.
Yeah.
Kind of the captain's role. Always doubting himself. Always, am I doing the right thing? Right.
Yeah, and he'd be played by, I don't know, Tommy Lee Jones or somebody.
Okay.
I'm too old for this shit kind of thing.
Yeah. Sure. And I think too, it seemed like the character struggled maybe with like an imposter syndrome. Like I'm not supposed to be here. What am I doing?
Yeah.
Did you in your career have you experienced that as well? Like when you're writing a book and you're like, oh, I'm not that good. Oh, this isn't that good. Do you have those feelings as well?
Oh yeah, for sure. Both as a teacher and as a writer. Yeah, for sure.
Sure. Any advice for young writers looking to overcome similar feelings now that you're a published author?
I have a suspicion that even like Stephen King gets imposter syndrome.
Sure.
So just go ahead and write it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And writing, it seems to be just the more, like any craft, the more you practice, the better you get. And Stephen King is quoted as saying, you'll never be, in order to be a good writer, you have to consume a lot of writing too.
Oh yeah. Definitely.
What's if we poked our head into your house? What would be on your bookshelf? What are you into reading yourself?
Okay.
It's not all output, I assume.
Let's see.
Are you a big reader?
I've taken in more audiobooks lately than reading, but a lot of Heinlein, Asimov, Bradbury.
Okay.
My absolute favorite is probably okay. So Stephen King writes a series called The Dark Tower.
Got him. Got the whole series, buddy.
Yeah. And it's very different from his usual horror.
Yeah.
There's a bit of horror in it. There's also science fiction.
Yep.
There's multiple universes. It's this incredible mix of genres.
It's 7 book series.
It's 7 books long.
Yeah.
Incredible mix of genres. And it's so inspiring. Because, holy wow, this is just what you can do when you've had all this experience and trial and error and paid millions of dollars for doing it. You really want with your writing.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, it's just amazing.
And that's for him too. I bet that was very very therapeutic. Not to box himself into just one genre his whole career. Fantastic. So moving on to number to anthology number 3.
3, 4.
Yeah.
Three was the goofy superhero I mentioned.
And 4 we're into.
4 is the last one we did as Busan Writers Group.
Okay.
Ryan
Beautiful.
Estrada's cartoon.
I was chatting with him yesterday. He's sending me a couple books from a couple of his books.
Okay, called Headquarters after HQ.
Yes.
Which is a bar in Busan.
Yeah, and as far as I've read, this is a book based on people's experiences in the bar.
That's right.
They're fictional experience. It's all fiction. Yeah, it's not based on. Okay.
At the time we were writing this, the original HQ was going to go out of business. Mm-hmm. There's another HQ now.
Was that about 4 or 5 years ago?
Yeah. And this is right before the pandemic really got started.
We were there for the closing party or something.
Yeah.
Oh, is that the pitch?
We went to,
okay.
That was HQ. Yeah.
Okay.
And HQ had a boar's head on the wall.
Yeah.
And so that's what Ryan Estrada drew for the cover.
Wonderful.
So all these stories are centered around a bar. Mm-hmm. The only thing we asked of everybody is that there's a bar and try to get the boar's head in your story.
Yeah.
I think one person didn't get the boar's head and that was fine. But anyway, my story this time was the bar is the halfway point between life and death.
Interesting.
It's
what a concept.
Kind of like Nirvana, or not Purgatory. Purgatory.
Yeah.
I had a bar that was Purgatory.
Okay.
You go there before you move on to whatever's next.
Okay.
So I had a story like that, and it was really, really hard to write. Mm-hmm. And again, I probably wouldn't run with that idea again. But it was
what kind of characters were in your? Where could be found in HQP?
I think my character in that case
is it just a mix of foreign teachers and engineers.
No, it wasn't a foreign teacher. This time it was a female character. Mm-hmm. I wanted to try writing as a woman this time. Yeah. Wanted to challenge myself to that. Yeah. And so I talked to the female members in our group for advice on this. Mm-hmm. And so she came into ownership of a bar when she was alive. Mm-hmm. and then in the afterlife, she finds herself helping another character who's passing from life to death.
Okay, cool.
And the story is how she helps him move on.
Yeah. Have you ever read The Midnight Library?
No.
Do you know? No, it's or just a male author writing as a female, and I didn't realize that until after the book, and I was like, wow, that's a very interesting path to take, and maybe very challenging for an author to.
It is certainly challenging
to think as the opposite sex. Very interesting.
So as you've progressed through all these anthologies, and recently you said the Busan Writers Group is kind of dissolved. Do you have hopes for the future of reigniting that Busan Writers Group?
Yeah.
Or have you moved on to bigger and better things with the
Ulsan. Ulsan Writing
The
Group.
rules, well, I'm a member of Ulsan Writing Group.
I mean, would you be interested in leading another anthology in the future, or
Sure,
are you
for
onto
example.
these bigger projects? And that's
I'd be willing to be part of
Right.
another anthology. I don't know if I'd want to lead one.
right.
If some enterprising young, well, it doesn't have to be young, if some enterprising author wants to start things up again with the Busan Writing Group, I will hand you the virtual keys to the Busan Writing Group, and you can run our Facebook. You can use our name. You can use our logo. We have a logo.
Oh, sweet.
You're welcome to use it.
Yeah.
And you could even publish under it if you want.
Why do you think the interest has dissipated, or is it just a different group of people now? In Ulsan, the demographics have changed drastically in terms of
yeah.
educators.
Corona probably smushed it.
But Busan has a lot of diverse, maybe people working in different kind of jobs or fields. Here, it's strictly engineers, international students, laborers, or teachers. There is no bankers, businessmen. There's not a lot of that stuff. What about in Busan? Has the demographics changed so much, and there's just
I think,
or just people stopped writing, or what happened?
I think Liquid Arts, the group that does poetry and music, they're already doing like somewhat regular meetings.
Yeah,
For writing?
But they don't have
kind of everything, isn't it? Like
Yeah,
because
it's
the
kind of
poetry and
everything.
stuff.
Liquid Arts.
yeah, their writing workshops aren't very often.
Perhaps an M&A with Liquid Arts.
But I think part of it is because a lot of the people moved to other countries and COVID,
Sure.
Corona, and it's been hard to get
Any traction?
people who can commit to
Yeah,
a certain day of the week or whatever. And I don't really want to be the leader of the Busan Writing Group right now. I've got my and I've got a book. I've got to write sequels to this thing too. But I will happily be a part of it if somebody else takes the reins. That would be the best outcome for me.
What for anyone who's on the fence about joining a writers group? What are some of the benefits that you can get by joining it? It's just meeting like-minded readers
people
and
and
writers.
you get people to talk to.
developing a network.
Developing a network.
What is? Can you take us through what is a writers meeting? Are you meeting do you guys just meet for you guys order coffee and all right, I'm going to do my thing for an hour. You're going to do your thing for an hour, or is there? Are you doing writing tutorials or something? What's the
With the Ulsan group? Here's what we do. We usually start with, okay, so every day we wanted everybody to read this famous short story that was published whenever, might be, for example, The Lottery, which is a famous short story, or might be something by Ray Bradbury, might be something, a piece of fiction that got into the New York Times, was the New Yorker. Sorry,
The New Yorker, sure.
New Yorker. Anyway, it would be read something published, talk about it. That's the first order of business. Second order would be, okay, last time we gave everybody a writing prompt. Did you write something about it? Okay, what did you write? Tell me about it. Even if you're not finished, doesn't matter. What did you write?
Cool.
And then we do a writing exercise. Like last time we did, okay, here's a newspaper. Take this news story, circle 10 words in this news story.
Yeah.
Those 10 words will be part of your story that you write somehow.
Interesting. Within the within the class?
Yeah,
Even
and
now,
then you
okay.
try to write your little short story.
Oh, very interesting. So it's just kind of brain exercise,
Yeah.
mental jumping jacks with the team. Very nice.
I'm curious a little bit about you said you teach a fiction writing class at the university.
Oh, yes, I did.
Maybe how do you incorporate your writing background or experiences, and what is it like? I mean, like we said, these day and age with GPT and everything else, there's not a lot of seemingly not a lot of writers out there, or people looking forward to writing. Or
Yeah.
I'm trying to get my kids on the old diaries a couple times a week, but man, it's not easy.
It's hard.
So when you teach a class like that, what is the vibe? What is it like?
The way I do it is I spend each week of the class writing, getting them to write a story element, focusing on a story element. Like this week we're talking about characters. We're going to make a character. What's your character like? And then next week we're going to do settings. Let's make some settings.
World building.
Let's describe the settings. And then I had a 1 week as POV. Let's talk about how is it different writing in the first person versus the third person.
Right.
And then if you really want to use the second person, you can, but people are going to think you're strange.
No doubt.
Are the responses and the work that you get there? I'm not saying there's a right or wrong way to do it, but is there some surprising stuff? Or wow, do you have mostly international students or Korean students?
It's a mix.
So is there must be some major differences between international and Koreans, or is it fairly similar? Or is it surprising? Or
Okay. With the international students, the biggest surprise is a lot of them have already done some kind of writing. And some of them have even been they've gotten into fan fiction. They found parts of the internet where fan fiction is popular. And yes, that includes that kind of fan fiction.
wow,
Yeah, we're on the same
know
page.
what I mean?
Okay, I got it. Okay.
You know, Kirk and Spock. What were they doing behind the scene? That kind of fan fiction.
Ah, interesting. Huh. That's funny. Do they submit work like that?
I've had students say that yes, they wrote and submitted like slash fiction
Sure. Yeah.
on these websites where one can do that.
Oh, interesting. Very interesting. Do you do the heroes? Is the hero's journey part of your class?
I tell them about the hero's journey, but this course is so basic. I just and we're writing. The goal is to just write a short story. So we don't go very far into like hero's journey and stuff like that. Okay. It's mostly just I just
more
want to see,
elements than
I just want to see you put together a setting, a character in the setting, a problem, and some kind of resolution.
Cool.
Have most of them spent time writing in English before, or is most of their writing in their native language?
Yeah, most of the students have written something in English. In fact, I say that in the prereq. I say that as a prerequisite of the course.
You should have some.
You should have written, even if it's just an essay.
Right.
You should have written something in English before.
Right.
Very nice.
What other kind of courses are you teaching at the university? Any other related to writing or no?
Nothing else related to writing. Of course, English conversation.
Yeah.
Like every native teacher at my university, I got to teach that. I do have an interesting one that I made aside from the writing course. There's a academic studies skills course, and I made that, and I love teaching it. It's really cool because I can do stuff like, here's what we do about stress. This week we talk about note taking.
Yeah.
This week we talk about
note taking. Wow, is there still note taking?
Yeah.
I haven't seen a kid in class take notes in about 10 years.
They definitely do.
Oh, cool.
Pen and paper even. Yeah.
I remember sitting in uni taking notes the whole time and going, man, these guys got it easy. They just sit here. There's no notes or anything.
Oh, interesting. Have you ever thought about putting that online as like a Coursera or?
That's where most of it came from.
Okay. Hey, just paying homage to the powers that be.
Where do you see, or how do you see technology playing into the writing of the future here? We've come up a few times now. Writing is not particularly something that a lot of the young kids are interested in, whether that's elementary or middle high school. Where do you see maybe GPT and some of this AI stuff and the future of writing or sci-fi?
I think there's going to be this period where it gets really, really bad is probably going to continue for a while. But I do think people will eventually get sick of picking up a book or whatever and seeing, this looks like it was written by a robot.
Yeah.
I think people are going to get sick of that.
Sure.
And I think people will be able to tell. And I think in the future, us teachers will be teaching, literacy in the way that here's how you tell what was written by a robot and what was written by a human. I think we'll have that kind of literacy course in the future.
Yeah. I wonder how hard or easy it'll be to decipher, because with the more training of the algorithm and stuff, and the more and more, I mean, I wonder now. I think to most people now, they don't have a filter.
Yeah.
The young, they have no idea what they see is fake and I have I do a course in AI, and I think half the students don't even know that the people they're following are fake, or that they're chatbots here and robots here.
Yeah.
And I think, oh my God, like how are we gonna get the next generation to come backwards to say like, okay, don't believe anything you see and let's go back to square one.
Two thoughts on that. First, like even as a English first language, it's hard to decipher sometimes what's real, what's not. Doing that in a second language, probably impossible. Second, in terms of will AI take over writing or whatnot, like I think maybe we should be pitching writing to kids not as like a career or like this can propel you to make millions of dollars, you could be the next Stephen King, but more as like a practice or a meditation that you could that helps you, like you said, work through a problem or express yourself or something like that.
This is a little dense for the content of this podcast, I know, but this episode. But you see, this is where we need UBI. This is where we need a basic income for everybody, so that I could write Flung or whatever I want to write, and I don't have to worry about money, and I can just be creative. And it doesn't matter if a robot is writing something and it gets popular. Not really. Because it doesn't, if I have UBI or whatever, I'm not gonna starve to death or whatever, Yeah.
You can't throw everything on the back burner and just focus on this.
UBI is something I thought about too. We can go into that if you want. But do you think? I don't know. It's good in theory, but do you think going down? I mean, I'd love to have an extra couple grand in my pocket to stay at home and paint landscapes. But do you think at some point people you need that incentive to get out of the house. And I mean, looking how people went through the pandemic in Canada anyways, everyone got hand loads of money or a couple grand a month or whatever for a couple of years. I don't know if we were any better off after doing that. I don't know if people used, I don't know, I haven't thought about this. If people used that time wisely, or if they knew it was going to come to an end, so maybe they approached
right now,
it.
It wasn't used wisely.
They
I just
did
witnessed it for a month.
Yeah.
It was 100% not used wisely. All we have now is an extra how many hundred millions, billions in the economy that is fake money that wasn't there before the pandemic, and it's going to have a major impact. But
maybe if it's reframed, people know it's not a finite paycheck. It's going to go on forever. Maybe they would approach it differently, but I don't know.
Well, if your UBI is the minimal to get by, you got a choice: take that and do nothing and live the basic life, or take that and do something else to improve your life.
Yes, exactly.
It can't replace your salary. It should be to keep you afloat.
Yes.
And you better be inspired to do more. Otherwise, you're just going to be living.
Okay. One question. If the government gave out all that, I haven't thought through this, but if the government just gives everyone whatever $2,000 a month, doesn't the price of everything just go up? Because people know that everyone just has an extra $2,000 a month. Doesn't inflation play into some of that? And then your shit's just going to be more expensive. You're going to end up working anyways. And then you're going to need some form of government to regulate like increases in prices or something. And then you're just just chasing your tail.
Yeah, but you can tax the billionaires, first of all. That's where you get the money from.
Your buddy Elon. Mr. Musk.
We're going to pass a new bill called the fucking stick it to Elon.
Yeah, that's where you get the money from. You tax the ever-loving fuck out of the billionaires.
Hold on though. If you take all his money away, he's not going to build the rockets to get to space, right? I think that would be I don't know. I'm glad it's not my job to decide and make decisions on all this stuff.
I'll just say this. We've gone the wrong way with AI. Why is AI writing stories and drawing pictures? Why isn't it doing taxes or crappy math stuff that humans are bad at?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, but it's what the people want, right? I mean, we're using.
I think it's just the easiest applications for it for the general person at the start, and there's definitely many more complex uses for it.
Have you seen the video stuff?
Yeah.
Have you seen the video stuff?
You can't keep up. It changes every single week. You just can't keep up.
I saw one the guy typed in.
It's exhausting trying to figure out what's current and what's.
I saw one the guy typed in like, whatever, 2 Labrador retrievers eating birthday cake on a mountain, and in 2 seconds there was like a 30-second video of two Labradors eating a birthday cake in a mountain. You're like, holy shit. and there are, I mean, if you really look, I think it was that one, like the flame on the candle was a little bit strange, but I mean, if you're scrolling through something, you're not going to catch any of that. Wild. Wild.
Well, just wait. This is still just the beginning. I mean, GPT came out last November.
Yeah.
So we've been just over a year. And it's grown exponentially. I mean, it's just bonkers how much stuff has come out in the last.
Deepfake's still my favorite. Watching Kim Jong-un sing "Give Peace a Chance" or I can't remember what.
We are the world.
We are the world.
Well, just wait. This election's going to have a lot of that in it as well, and I think it's going to play a major role.
I'm still not convinced the Trump shoes aren't some AI thing.
The Trump shoes are beauties.
The Trump shoes?
He came like the first president to come up with his own shoe line.
He has his own shoe line?
He's got like three or four different style versions or styles, but they look like Converse high tops. One of them with a big T and a gold 43 on it.
Spray painted gold.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Oh, speaking of shoes, I mean, the Super Bowl wasn't so long ago, but this week in class, we're looking at some of the Super Bowl commercials, and Kanye West, possibly the best commercial. Do you see his commercial? I mean, you pay $7 million for a 30-second slot, and every other commercial has like, you know, very high production quality superstars in it. Kanye West, I swear to God, he's in his car, I think, on his camera phone, shitty lighting. He's like, go to my website, Yeezy.com. I got shoes. That's it. Paid $7 million, and then they analyzed his. I think his sales
Sold
after
$500 million worth of
or no, I think it was 20 million in the next 24 hours. That's wild.
Wow.
Yeah, but I mean, that's not a no one. That's not a nobody doing something. He's probably simply reminded everyone I'm selling shoes, and go have a look. But wild times, Chris. What's the next big thing we can expect from you? Do we have to? How long do we got to wait for the next book?
Not 8 years, I hope.
Listen, I want something by the end of March.
Do you have a timeline for that, or when you hope to get started, or?
Actually, I do have a rough timeline. I'm thinking 2026.
2026. Cool.
Yeah,
Starting or finishing?
to get the next book out. So.
Oh, wow. Better get going.
Yeah. No kidding. I won't promise anything.
ChatGPT 7 is going to be out next year.
What have you learned from this book that will make the next one so much easier, or not?
Easier. So much easier.
I think I've learned that I've learned many ways not to write.
Okay. Yeah.
I've learned many
Yeah.
ways how not to write.
Right.
I'll put it that way.
Yeah. Make a mistake once, don't do it again. There you go. That's awesome. Well, anything else you want to plug? You want to add?
Do you have a website or anything, or where the book's available, or?
Okay. Well, the book.
We can send us the links after.
Yeah,
we can put it up.
And my website is my Substack, tccedwards.substack.com.
Okay, cool.
That's the best place to find out about my writing works.
Very nice. Very good. Well, Chris, listen, man. Thanks. Thanks, Zach, for introducing us. It was wonderful to hear your story, pick your brain a little bit about your upcoming book. It was I really enjoyed reading. Thank you so much for sending it over. Really looking forward to number 2. I'm sad I have to wait to 2026, but if you want to send me a little snippet earlier, I'd be happy to read and critique the hell out of it for you.
Sure. Thanks.
Thanks so much. Thanks for coming down all the way from Yongsan. Best of luck going forward for you, the family, the teaching, and everything. Are you going to vote for Musk in 2028?
Well, I'm not American. I'm Canadian, so we got our own elections.
No doubt. Anyways.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thanks so much for coming. Everyone, thank you for listening, and goodbye.